Yeah, that one's on me. I can't really teach spatial awareness, but I can show you the survival tips that actually make a difference. Ones that every player needs to know. We've got over 40 essential tips here, including one that will literally extend your survival in every raid. So let's get started. As I mentioned in my beginner's guide, shields are not extensions of your health bar, they're mitigation coefficients. So whenever you take damage, you'll be taking damage to both, not one after the other. When you break a shield in most games, you're probably used to yelling to your teammates, he's one shot. But in Apex or Warzone, for example, they're probably still at full health. But here, when you break shields, knowing what I said, you'll actually be right. They are much closer to a one shot than in any other game. That's also the reason your instinct in this game should be to heal first before charging shields, because you can still be one-shot with a full shield and low HP. Going up in shield sizes isn't a net gain as well. The bigger the shield, the better the mitigation, but also the bigger the shield, the slower you move. And you also need to remember that you're limited to a backpack which has to be compatible with that size, which might impose other penalties like less weight to carry or less item slots or safe pockets. Another tip here is that you can actually tell which type an enemy has just by looking, if you're close enough that is. 1 prong means a light shield, 2 is medium, and 3 prongs is heavy. Like in Horizon Zero Dawn or many similar games with robots, the Arc robots have certain weak spots where it's the most efficient place to aim for, whether it's head or joints or whatever parts. That can be its own video. But I can show you on the most common type, which are the Hornets and the Wasps. If you shoot their body, they can take multiple shots. And as I mentioned in my previous video, heavy ammo is best against the Arc. You can see I do great damage to weak points, which in this case, it's those 4 thrusters. It stuns them for longer, and with a couple of shots, they are either dead or at least spinning on the ground, unable to fly. If you break 2 thrusters on one side usually. And even with weaker ammo, you can easily deal with them. Worth noting that Hornets have the 2 front thrusters armored, so shooting the back ones is more effective. Early on in your career, you need the safest loot, even more if you have a free loadout. 2 of the main options here are supply drops and raider caches. Supply drops are just that. They drop a little further away from compounds in open spaces, and they have a beacon on top, which has a distinct sound. So if you hear this, follow the sound and you'll find some goodies. The other thing is raider caches, which are less visible as they're just flat on the ground and they make this ticking noise. Those will tend to have raider stuff, so weapons, ammo, consumables, sometimes surprisingly high rarity too. 2 important things that will affect your overall strategy or playstyle are number 1, your loadout. When you ready up, you normally have your equipped loadout, but you do have another option. If you don't want to invest anything and you're still super poor, you can select a free loadout. This will give you random items, 1 weapon, and a free backpack, which is pretty small, and most importantly, it does not have any safe pockets. And like I said, it will affect your playstyle, because if you ever find any good loot, you have to be very careful to make it to extraction, as death without safe pockets means you get absolutely nothing. The second thing that will decide your playstyle is the fact that when you drop in, it doesn't mean it's a fresh game. You can join a raid after it starts. You can tell by looking at the time here. If it's 29, that means it's a fresh raid. And I've joined games as late as 17 minutes in. So you need to take that into account. The tip here is that if you start fresh, then it's probably safe to try to hit the highest loot compounds. But if you joined late, it's safe to assume that others did that already, and maybe it's best to go try catch them at the extraction, kill them, and take that loot they scavenged. And combining those 2 options can be a tip to keep in mind too. If you spawn with a free loadout and you're late in the game, it probably means the edges of the map are relatively safe, as most players have probably moved inwards towards the compounds. This means you can stick to the outskirts and farm and safely extract with potentially less risk of running into players. When you kill a player, a flare goes up, which is visible all over the map. This means other players can see it, know there's some action there, and try to push in third party. Or in this case, if your teammates are mentally challenged. One thing to know is that if you kill a player indoors, this won't happen because the flare will hit the ceiling, then drop on the floor. The other thing is that there are fake or decoy flares that players can shoot to attract others to what they think is combat, only to ambush them. This isn't an obvious thing, so you have to know it, but it's a shame if you miss this. When you're downed, you can stay up for quite a while before you bleed to death. If you've already called the lift, you can actually crawl in to the terminal and punch in the codes, even when you're downed. This way, you can actually successfully extract and survive. You can extract with other players as long as they don't down you and finish you off before the doors close. Or if you negotiate a peaceful extraction together. One more tip here, if you happen to get killed by the Ark, they simply ignore downed players. They will never shoot you when you're down to finish you off. So if there are no contesting players and you just get downed by the Ark at the extraction, there's nothing to worry about. You can crawl in, punch in the codes, and leave safely. To save you some time, I'll do some quickfire tips. There's no friendly fire in the game, except for explosions which can hurt your teammates. You can't go prone, only crouch. Whenever you kill an Ark, especially the small flyers, you might lose track of where the actual lootable piece is. The way to identify it is by looking for the smoke. Quests can be completed by squad members, unless it's delivering loot of course. But if you have a quest that says kill 3 wasps for example, as long as someone on your team kills them, you complete the quest. Use and abuse smoke grenades. They can cover your escape from a fight, blind players and AI while you activate the lift to extract, cover or revive. Smoke grenades are your friends. You run faster when you holster your weapons. Worth noting that pulling out your weapon is often a slow animation, so if there's a chance you run into a fight, it's a disadvantage to do that. That's why you have to judge this based on each situation. Those husks are often safe to loot, as they're on the edge of the map. They will burn you once you breach them, but if the moment the progress bar ends you roll out of the way, you can avoid the damage. Dodge rolling when dropping from a height can negate damage, but only up to a reasonable distance. You can split stacks of items in your inventory by holding Alt and dragging. There are some sound alarms that can give your position away if you trigger them, like the flocks of birds or the car alarms. You can smack the car alarms with melee to disable them, but that's actually a bad idea. The best approach here is to avoid them, to hopefully make them somebody else's problem. And potentially, they can act as an alarm to tell you about someone that might be stalking you, rather than make it easier for them to sneak up on you if you've cleared up all the alarms in your path. Now during the raid, you can break items, but it's not recycling, it's salvaging. This is bad, it's inefficient. Here for example, if you salvage 5 Arc alloys, during a raid, it will give you 5 metal parts. But if you recycle the same item when you're in your base, 15 of them will give you 30. That's a 50% loss. Everything is like that. Whenever you salvage items during a raid, you are losing value. But it's still a good thing to do in many cases. For example, if you're full, you would otherwise not loot the item, you don't care about it much, but you'd rather take something than nothing. If you find a weapon and want to make sure nobody loots it, you can just break it. Even if you take lower ranks, it's better than nothing. But the real main reason to salvage has to do with the most important tip you need to know. So this is a good segue to tell you what it is. The ultimate tip here actually comes in 2 parts. First, in your first few levels, maybe up to level 10, don't be afraid to extract early. There's zero shame in this. If you've filled your bags, maybe finished a quest, and there's a safe extraction nearby, just go. Efficiency beats ego. You don't have to hunt every player on the map unless that's your only goal. The reason is simple. Once you're out of healing or shield recharges, you're basically one unlucky Arc encounter away from losing everything. And that brings me to the real secret here. The second part. In the survival tree, there's a skill called in-round crafting. It only takes 3 points to reach. You can grab it as early as level 4, and once you unlock it, you'll get a crafting tab during raids. That means you can salvage what you scavenge and craft bandages and shield recharges on the fly. With that one skill, you go from constantly extracting early to surviving way longer and actually getting to enjoy those tense mid-raid moments instead of limping around empty-handed. There's also no penalty to field crafting. Unlike salvaging during a raid, the crafting cost during raid is exactly the same if you craft that consumable back in your base. There's also another skill further down in the same tree that allows you to craft additional items in the field. Since you can now craft during a raid, you can make bandages from fabric, and it's easier to both find some during a raid or take as much as you want with you. But when it comes to shield recharges, you need rubber parts, which you will have plenty of, at least from Scrappy's findings, but they will also need an arc power cell. Now that's something you can only get from killing arc in raids. What you can do here, if you're low on power cells but have plenty of rubber parts, is to start the game with some rubber parts in your safe pockets. Once you kill an arc and get a power cell, you craft. That way you keep replenishing your charges as you go. You can use the power cells themselves to recharge your shield, but they're not efficient enough. And with this in mind, you will have a quick and easy supply of the green recharges. The other way around is okay too. If it's going well and you're not consuming your shield recharges, but you're killing arc and getting a bunch of power cells, if you don't need to craft, you can swap them and put the power cells in the safe pocket. Because if you don't have anything better to keep yet and you die, at least you come out with the power cells, which you can't acquire otherwise. This is obviously more useful in early to mid game, but later on, eventually you will rely on better healing and better shield recharges, which will require other mats to craft. But the concept is what matters here. Your safe pockets are flexible slots that you should constantly remember to use for the best outcome at each moment. If you don't have much, put some critical crafting materials or a quest item that you need to extract with. If you find a hatch key, prioritize that. If you find a super rare schematic, prioritize that. Just remember to always judge what's best to keep in a safe pocket as the game progresses. If you think I missed any critical tips that new players should know, please drop them in the comments down below. And if you found this video helpful, please remember to like, hype, and subscribe for more Arc Raiders content. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.